Good day, and once again, we've got a Talking Technical show, and of course, as in the past, we are flooded with some emails and requests of people that would like to know about shares. And I hope that I can just cover most of them. Christelle laughed at me last night because she said to me, listen, she struggled to get through all the requests. Maybe I can do so, but let's maybe see. The first one that we're going to look at, Shoprite, is from Asif. Asif wanted to know what is our view on Shoprite, and let's have a look at the long-term chart, because most of the South African counters has been hit so hard. Let's have a look. Shoprite. Well, if we look at this chart, it's almost symptomatic of a lot of South African counters. Now, we know that some of these counters also do business in Africa, but look at this share price. I mean, Shoprite was at around 280 Rand a few years back, and suddenly the share is under immense pressure. It's now around 113 Rand and 14 cents. But first, let's have a look. See if your problem is that the momentum is still clearly to the downside. If we look at that, there you are. The momentum is clearly to the downside because this trend line tells you that wherever we can see a little bit of a bounce, there's a seller around. Look at it. Touch there. It touched there and it touched there, and look at it, all of them are lower highs. High, lower high, lower high, lower high, all the way right through. There was a little bit of a bounce, but momentum is still clearly to the downside. The only thing that makes me a little bit optimistic is the following. You see that the low there during September last year was at around 111 Rand on the dot, and now it's flirting at 113 Rand. So maybe it's going to test this low of 111 Rand. And if it can test it and turn around from there, at least we can say this may be a double bottom in the making. At this point in time, remember the double bottom is not there. It is maybe an idea, but only above. And I want to show the level. There's the level where the double bottom, if the double bottom materialize, only above that line, the double bottom will come into play. And that is above 138 Rand and 40 cents. Below that, momentum is still clearly to the downside, and our first sign of strength will be if this trend line can turn into a support, because at the moment it is a clear resistance, momentum is down, and it looks like that the sellers are just all over the show. So for us personally, we need to wait for this line. There's the confirmation of that trend line. If that breaks, to turn a double bottom into a support, and let's just see where the share can go if this double bottom comes into play. There you are. Let's take it a little bit. There you are. What I do is I just do the extensions from the low, the resistance line, and upward, and the level will be 173.76. That's more or less a level where it can get to if we can see a double bottom materialize. But we will go through maybe another few South African shares, and what we'll see tonight is that most of these shares are almost at new record lows, trying to find their feet, and in actual fact, they only find their feet for a while, and then suddenly they come under pressure. So Shoprite is just one of those stocks that we can say. Well, another stock that we would like to look at is Intu, and Esmail asked about Intu. Now, Intu is one of those stocks that I also thought that offers some long-term value, and I bought it a while back. And I stopped buying it because I heard all of the bad news that's in the stock and the company is struggling. Now, luckily, I didn't buy that much of it. I bought it close to 18 Rand, and then I bought another lot, I think at around 8 Rand, and then I just stopped buying because I heard that there's maybe a rights issue coming. And Esmail, there's something to keep in mind. And I know there's a viewer also always asking me about my Impala short. Now, I've learned over the years, even with a share like Intu Properties, if you go into a share, don't rush in and buy a lot, because if you're then wrong, you can either sit it out, or you wait for a rights issue, or you wait for the time for the share to actually give you a proper buying signal. But look at it. I mean, from a 75 Rand stock in 2015 with wonderful fundamentals and nice dividend yield and everything, just went 100%. It actually collapsed, and now it is 2.82 Rand, and suddenly these guys struggle just to keep doing business. They they're begging for money, they're selling some of their assets. So they're in dire straits. Now, it's almost the same thing as what we've seen with Shoprite. Let's just have a look. And I'm going to use this line, and you will see that the momentum is still clearly to the downside. And I've seen over the years, the moment there's things like a corporate action or maybe a rights issue coming up, or even a rumor that the company will buy some other company, I always believe that the technicals at that certain point in time does not work that well. So let's have a look here. There's the momentum. It's clearly to the downside. It looks like there's a tiny little blip that it can maybe test this line. But for me personally, I will say I'll wait for the announcement to see if they're going to give us a rights issue. What is the situation here? Because as we can see in the census and all the pieces of news that we read around, they're not 100% clear of what is the scenario. And I'm always scared about that, because if I look at this line, and that is the one that worries me, is if I look at that line, the trend is clearly to the downside, and maybe, can you believe it, it can go even lower. And although this is a falling wedge is always a nice information, but only if the company is sound and they've got money and they can continue business. But on this side, we're waiting for an announcement on maybe a rights issue. The chart doesn't look well, and look at your momentum, clearly to the downside, lower rise. So for the moment, I will say if you want to buy, and I mean that is a speculative buy deluxe, buy above this 282, because that's the test of this line. Make use of a stop loss of 192, and maybe it can bounce back to 397. Well, that's a rand from here. But yes, you can make good money, but I'm very nervous on the company and even on the chart, because the chart just gives us a little bit of a blip and then it moves back. Well, let's have a look at BTI. Klerk asked about it, and he said, listen, I'm a long-term investor and I would like to have a look at the company and see if I can maybe buy the company. So let's have a look first of all. British American Tobacco, there you are. There you are. But if I look at the company here, and if I look at the share price, let's just zoom it out. And you will see that it at one point went as high as almost 1,950. It collapsed into the doldrums right to the beginning of 2019. And since then, it gave us one leg up and another leg down and another leg up. And that is sound. You'll probably find that if you look at the waves, there's an A, a B, and a C. Maybe you'll see a bit of a pullback. For me personally, this is holding the key. While the share is above this line, and let's just add I just want to add a formula here. I just want to see where's the 40-week moving average, because I think that is going to hold the key for us. There you are. Well, there's it. It is above the 40-week moving average. There you are. And Craig, I think while the stock is above this line, you can maybe purchase it. I would love it if it can just pull back a little bit, back to 605 Rand, because then from there, it can maybe give us a new beautiful bounce to the upside. But the momentum is picking up. Look at it. There's the low. Went up, came back, new higher high. It is positive for me. And there's another line. And this was a resistance line for quite a while. Let's have a look there. There you are. Broke this line at 576 a while back. So let's give a technical buy at 603. Wait for the share at 603.42. Make use of a stop loss of 589.13, unless you feel that you want to chase momentum. If you want to chase momentum, you need to wait for this little line there, this little high there to be taken out. I'm going to put a line in there so that you can see, because I mentioned it there. There you are. If it can take out this high, that's 670, you need to chase the momentum. I don't like to chase momentum. But on the other hand, use a stop loss of 635.19, and it can go higher. And my targets to the top here is 720.97 and 811, and in between there 800 Rand. Keep in mind that British American Tobacco is of course a wonderful rand hedge. The company like a weaker rand, And what I like about the company, I'm not a smoker at all, but what I like about the company is that it's got a captive market. People that smoke tend to carry on smoking, and they like their brands. They maybe love a certain brand, and then they will always go back and buy that brand. And what do you see is these big companies like a British American Tobacco, they've got like sort of a monopoly. So what they can do is they can add on to their prices. And if you don't want to buy the product from them, unfortunately, you cannot get it from somewhere else unless you buy an illegal product. So British American Tobacco, I like the company. Remember, many years ago, it came out of the Remgro stall. And what happened was it performed wonderfully well. But what I like about it, although it is a company, it does business in South Africa. Mostly it's an overseas counter. But what I like about it, it's showing some signs of turnaround. If you look at some of the companies on the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, a lot of them are right at the top. I will prefer that in this kind of market, I'll rather buy something that is turning around where my risk is a little bit lower, and to chase the market right at the top and hope that we can see all new highs. I know some guys love to chase momentum for new highs, but for me personally, I'm a little bit conservative. If you look at my risk analysis, I would rather say if I buy a share for the long term, I want a share that wants to turn around, that goes above the 40-week moving average, that breaks a trend line, and if I do want to chase momentum, I'll buy it above that level. Otherwise, I'll just sit on my hands and wait for this pullback to come. But I mean, British American Tobacco, good chart, looks like a nice turnaround story, but after the break, we'll carry on and we'll do some other shares for you.